So we're going to work on section 1.3b today. Um, we're going to look at slopes as a rate of change. So if you travel in a car at a constant speed of 50 kilometers per hour for a length of time, that will mean for every hour you traveled 50 kilometers. So in 2 hours you traveled 100 kilometers, in 3 hours you traveled 150, and so on and so forth. That makes a nice little line on a graph. So at 1 it's 50, at 2 it's 100 kilometers, 3 it's 150. You can see at 4, if you read across, it's at 200, and at 5 it's 250. It makes a beautiful straight line. Now, we could do the same if you're traveling 75 kilometers per hour. It's just going to be a little steeper of a line because at 1 hour you did 75 kilometers, after 2 you did 150, after 3 you did 225, and so you get a little steeper graph. When you plot it on a graph, time is always the horizontal, distance is the vertical. Okay? Now, you can join those lines because it's a continuous function. If it wasn't a continuous function, you wouldn't join the lines. So, for example, if you bought one chocolate bar, it cost you $1. Two chocolate bars, it would cost you $2. Three chocolate bars would cost you $3. You can't get a partial chocolate bar, so in that case, you would just have dots. Okay? But because you can go 60 or 61 and a half kilometers per hour, we can form those lines. Okay. Now, if you choose two of these points on the graph, you actually can take the slope. Remember we talked about doing your rise or run right on the graph? So we rise 50 and we run 1. So when we rise 50 and run 1, remember rise is on the top for your slope. So you get 50, and that's in kilometers when we do the rise, over the run of 1 hour. So you can come up with the slope of that line, which is 50 kilometers per hour, okay? Which is the rate of change. There's a couple more terms that you should know about. Um, Time is an independent variable, okay? So, and the distance is dependent. So how long it takes you to travel that distance will change it. Now, you can come up with equations of y equals mx plus b. M is the slope, and then y and x, it depends on what your variable. So for example here, time is our x variable, so we're going to put t in for x, m in for slope, as well as d in for y, because d is our y value. Now, if you take a look, all cases when you went no time, you had no distance. So this b, your y-intercept, is 0. So no matter what, you actually get an equation of y is equal to, which is d. So d is equal to 50 times t. Or d is equal to 75 times t, just depending on what the slope of the line is. So let's look at another example. Willard works as an electrician assistant earning $12.25 per hour. What is the dependent variable? Write an equation that shows the relationship between hours worked and income. So what are we trying to figure out? That's what a dependent variable is. Basically, a dependent variable, let's go back here and read. The dependent variable is a variable whose value relies on the value of another variable, right here. So our dependent value is the actual amount of money she's making, right? Because that depends on how many hours she works. So the independent one would be the hours she worked. The dependent variable is her income, okay? So her income is based on how many hours she worked times by the slope, which is 12.25 per hour. So what would we write her income? Income is equal to 12.25 per hour. If we are going to graph this equation, you'd have to come up with a scale. They've kind of did it here where the hours are on the bottom. The amount of money she makes is her earnings up the side. They went up by 10, so here you can see at 1 hour it's 12.25. At 2 it's halfway there at 25. At 3 it's 37.50, and so we get that nice little graph. Now, how much will Willard earn in 5 hours? Well, if we wanted to, we could read right off at 5 hours, or we could come into this equation we made. I is equal to 12.25 times 5, and if we punch that into our calculator, sorry, 12.25, sorry, delete, 12.25 times 5, we get $61.25. If we read off the graph at 5 hours, we could see it's just over $60. Hard to read. Okay. Are we good with that? This just goes through how they solve those answers there. And now you're at your build your skills. So just remember, usually the time goes across the x-axis, and that'll be your dependent rate, or your independent is how many hours or what you're actually doing, and then your dependent one will be what you're making, how fast you're going, actually what you're solving for, basically. All right, good luck.